we've always tried to do kind of keep to our original plan, so to speak. We've always kind of had the apocalypse theme, end of times, people dying, a little bit of war here and there, darker topics, so to speak. Just try to come up with more songs that kind of fit our style, tear it up and tear it down. Jay Fernandez ended up coming into Monstrosity for a minute, and me and him and Jason Avery wrote that album. He definitely brought some things that were kind of different for Monstrosity. We're definitely not going anywhere. We're here for life.
So hey everybody, we have here the one and only Lee from Monstrosity, and if you guys don't know Monstrosity, sorry, you should check them out. It's one of the early 90s death metal band that literally shaped the genre back, starting from Florida. And that's gonna lead me to the first thing I want to know, Lee. Since the band existed through multiple eras of death metal, from the early Florida explosion of today's hyper-technical landscape, and looking back, what core musical or philosophical principles have you intentionally preserved since the beginning?
Well, we've always tried to do, kind of keep to our original plan, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's always been, we got our second album was a little more technical. And so on our third album, we kind of brought it back a little bit to more of a brutal thing. So we've always kind of had the balance between the brutal and the technical. That's one thing we've kind of always had, and the darker kind of stuff. But kind of we've been on the same path since our third album, as far as consistency. And, we just try to stick to our guns.
Cool. And something good that you said, about consistency, since I found that Monstrosity's sound always balances brutality with structure and precision. And how has that compositional approach changed over the decades? And what kind of lessons have you what are the lessons from the earlier records informed the writing of the album, like Screams Beneath the Surface?
It's really hard to say. We just kind of just keep going with what we were doing. It's not really a conscious thing to where we have to, oh, let's do this more like XYZ band, or, we just do what we do,
Yeah.
We just try to come up with more songs that kind of fit our style. And, we work on
Hey.
it. We shape it, and we, you know, tear it up and tear it down, so that, we try to get the best songs that we can get, crafting the songs, and making them better. Usually I'll start with a riff or some parts, and then I'll send those over to Matt Barnes. And he'll take them and shape them up and make them better. He's, a better guitar player than I am, so he can really, beef everything up and make it, something that they want to play, instead of just, so it's kind of more of a collaboration rather than just me writing the whole thing and telling them what to play.
So, talking about that, is there any particular moments in the either in the studio while you were sharing riffs and compositions that when someone's input completely shifted the song's direction?
I would say on our third record, when we were writing that, Jay Fernandez, he's in Brutality, he ended up
Yeah.
coming into Monstrosity for a minute, and me and him and Jason Avery wrote that album. And he definitely brought some things that were kind of different for Monstrosity, and things like Suffering to the Conquered and Angel's Venom, even though that was more collaborative. But I would say Suffering to the Conquered kind of was a little bit different than what we had normally done at that point. And it's, something that we were open to, and it took a minute of thinking, is this, is this really what we want to do? But yeah, I'm glad we did it. And it's it's a favorite song of ours in the set to play. And we love the solo. The solo was phenomenal.
And also, if we can talk a little bit about lyrics, since like in death metal genre, it's often evolved alongside musicians writing them. How like how has your thematic or narrative perspective shifted over time? And what are the emotional or conceptual territory you're most interested into exploring on streams from beneath the surface?
Um, well, how I normally do it is, I'll come up with the
Yeah.
patterns first, and
Okay.
then I'll kind of like, you know, I'll have an idea for the what the patterns are, kind of where the words are going to be, and uh, I'll just do like a demo of just blah, 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 with not using words, and then from there I'll kind of fill in the blanks on some of the words, and then I'll take
Yeah.
it from there and come up with like kind of just stream of consciousness where I don't really overthink it, and I just let it kind of come out, and then it'll get to a point where I'll have to like make some decisions on what the song is going to be about and kind of shape the song from there. So it kind of evolves from where I start to where I finish, and it kind of leads itself. Um but as far as topics, we've always kind of had the apocalypse theme, end
Yeah.
of times, that kind of end of world kind of themes, people
Yeah.
dying, those death, uh a little bit of war here and there, little, things like that, the darker topics, so to speak. And we've never really strayed from that. I've always purposely tried to, keep it in that vein. I've written most of the lyrics. The only album I really didn't have anything on was the third album because Jason Avery
Mm-hmm.
really did such a good job. He came in with a bunch of concepts and I didn't have to do anything. But like the first album, I wrote all the lyrics. Second album, I wrote 9 out of 10. Fourth album, me and Sam Molina worked on together. Spiritual Apocalypse, I wrote everything on that. Passage, our singer Mike Robachek at the time, he wrote some words, but a lot of it was me. And then this new one is all me. So, I've tried to keep the direction the same, as far as the original themes of death and destruction.
So this is also like listening to Monstrosity, like your drumming has always been the backbone of the sound. And how do you find the perfect balance between writing the drum patterns and also writing the lyrics at the same
As far as writing the guitar riffs,
No, the drums.
okay, yeah, because I do, I write the guitar riffs too, some of them. So,
Oh,
um,
okay.
yeah,
Thank
I
you. This
wrote.
I didn't know. I thought you were more focused on drumming and the lyrics than
No,
guitar
no,
riffs.
no. Like some of the songs I've completely like the first song on the new album of this that one's completely mine. There's a few other songs that are completely mine, but um kind of what I do is I'll I'll have a skeleton of a drum, like a drum skeleton that an arrangement, so to speak, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll write guitar riffs to fit that drum skeleton. And then other songs, I'll have the guitars first. I'll just set up, a click track on my computer and I'll just write riffs, riffs, riffs. And then I'll go back and I'll kind of cut out the good riffs that I worked on,
Okay.
and then from there I'll put drums to those parts and arrange it, kind of depending on, what's a verse, what's a chorus, what's, middle section type thing. So it's 50-50. It goes both ways, and then sometimes, like depending on who's in the band and what's going on, I'll write with the guitar player, I'll
Mm.
give him one of my riffs and he'll throw one of his riffs in and we'll kind of go back and forth. So it's varied throughout the years, but mainly it's a lot of times it's me with a drum skeleton and then, I'll have riffs added to it.
Great. And what are like I know like some of my buddies here in Ottawa, they have different how can I say that? Uh so different backgrounds, either like musically or even like in reading in books or movie genres or anything. What kind of inspiration like gets you writing the final product that we on the Monstrosity sound?
I would say just life in general. I don't really tend to
Hmm.
like use books as inspiration. I know some guys like horror movies and
Yeah.
books, like sort of H.P. Lovecraft books or things like that, whatever, things like that. Um, I don't really do that, even though I read and you know, I watch movies sometimes, but I don't. There's usually never a direct influence,
Yeah.
and that's not one of my things necessarily. It's just life in general and the way I see things and just kind of using my imagination with it.
And like I've read recording the latest album like was both in Audio Hammer and Mori Sound, which is like the studios that like that they shape the different eras of extreme metal production. And how just want to know how did combining modern production precision with classic studio shapes the final sound and atmosphere of the record.
You know, I've heard that and been asked that in other interviews. And, even though Moore sounds a classic studio, so to speak, they're pretty modern as far as the techniques that they're kind of similar, in what they're
Yeah.
doing. They work a lot in the same ways. So, I mean, we're not using 2-inch tape anymore or anything, there's no, it's not like that. So
Mm.
the only difference, I guess, would be, is just having Jim Morris from Moore Sound. The guy's, a genius, and he's not
Yeah.
like he's not a total death metal guy, even though, like, he works on death metal records and stuff like that. He's a music guy, he's more it's
Yeah.
music in general, it's not just death metal, so that kinda brings a different influence. Um, at the same time, he understands what we're going for. He's been doing it long enough, and, like, when we first started, like, doing demos, before we went to More Sound, we would go to other studios and you would have to explain to the the engineer what we were trying to accomplish, and they a lot of times they wouldn't have a clue, really
Yeah.
what we're going for. Whereas, Jim Morris, we like I said, we've been working with him pretty much since our first album. Definitely, I mean, since our first album. And then all through these years off and on, so it's an easy relationship, we get along, we understand each other, what we're trying to do. So in that respect, as far as Jason over at Audio Hammer, um, I met him when he was just a kid on the Millennium Tour before he was really even doing a studio. And then we were kind of one of his guinea pig bands when he first started really recording with Rise to Power. He'd only done like the Trivium before that.
Yeah.
Um, And after he did the Rise to Power album, then he kinda blew up, with the Trivium and doing, like, other kinda modern productions and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, but it's music, and it's production. It's not necessarily we're not thinking in terms of, like, modern production and whatever. I get, there's certain aspects that are like, maybe over polishing a record or like making it real clean or something, and we try to,
Yeah.
we're conscious about that. We personally, we want to find the balance, between making things sound, lifeless and sterile. We don't want that, obviously, but we do want a powerful production, and sometimes with if you just set up a microphone and press record, you're not going to have that power. Sometimes you got to use compression, understand the compressions and like the different effects and the outboard gear and stuff like that to enhance the sound and you know, make it pop, make it better. So,
Oh,
like I said, both studios are definitely like in the same neighborhood as far as understanding the gear and understanding what we're trying to do. So, it makes it easy for us.
and that gets me to like I want to know like with the upcoming tour, Screams Across Europe, that you guys are planning to do this year. How are you designing the live experience to connect with the band's legacy, with the energy of the new material?
Um, Pretty much, what we try to do is do a couple songs from every record, and that way
Hmm.
that, for the guy that only owns Rise to Power, he'll still have a good time, and that I know a lot of the fans, they love their early stuff, and they don't really care about the new
Yeah.
stuff. There's those fans too, so we always try to hit on the early albums, to keep them happy. And at the same time, we like to play the new stuff to keep us happy. We're we're focused on the new stuff, and we want to expose people to the new albums. So we throw in a little bit of that too, but we don't try to bog down on any one thing too much. Um,
Yeah.
saying that, like we're doing the Brutal Assault Festival in August over in Czech
Mhm.
Republic, and they want like an Imperial Doom set from like the first album, set. So I guess we're gonna do for that show. We're gonna do some more of the first album than we would normally do.
And is there any songs that you're especially excited to perform live for the first time? Any
Um,
specific songs?
Banished, I guess. That'll be Banished to the Skies. Be one. Colossal will just be fun, just because people will know it, I'm sure, and hopefully they know Banished too. But the video's been out and it's been doing good, and everybody seems to
Yeah.
like it. So, you know, I, I think people will be excited to hear that song. And yeah, we have a few more surprises too, so we'll see.
Mm, all right. Can't wait. And like honestly, and after almost 4 decades right now, you guys like the band still feels more driven than nostalgic. What creative goals or unexplored territories are motivating you right now? Sorry. And how do you envision the band's next chapter beyond this album cycle?
We're trying to, just stay, you know, I think our goal is to kind of stay on the road for a while. But we've already started working on the next album. We have some ideas already going
Hmm.
for that. We, we're notorious for taking forever between albums. It was 11 years between Spiritual Apocalypse and Passage, and then it was 8 years between Passage and this album. So we're trying to shorten that
Yeah.
length without sacrificing quality. Um, so um, we have a few other surprises too we got going. So um, we're definitely not going anywhere. We're here for life.
Yeah.
So
Is there any concept you've been itching to explore that you haven't tackled yet?
not really. Not just want to keep going with kind of the direction we've been headed, and we look forward to getting into
Hmm.
the studio and kind of taking the lessons that we've learned from that's what we always do. We try to learn the
Yeah.
lessons from the last album and apply them to the next album, and just keep moving forward. And hopefully, because we're, big into, making sure the album sounds good, the sonics of the album. We want to make sure that everybody, if it, to me, if the album sounds good, it sounds good, so like I think
Mm.
the production can make or break a song. So we're always trying to level up on the production and keep it going, better and better. Obviously, like I said, we're still trying to find that balance though. We don't want it too clean, and we don't want to sound like a mechanical band, we want it to have some life. So we try to balance that out and make sure that, it's not too clean.
Anything else you want to add to the audience that watching you right now?
Thanks everybody for the support, and hopefully we can get back on the road here and see everybody and come to your town. Um, and just watch for more releases in the future because we're not going anywhere, like I said. And
Oh,
again, thank you for the interview.
yeah. And thank you again. I can't wait to see you here in Canada.
Okay, man.
Take care.